I could not be any more thrilled to welcome all of you to our inaugural virtual summit, again, for the Society of Clinical Placement Professionals. Uh, I wanted to just start off by sharing a little bit about our why, about my why, and we'll get into a little bit more about the history in just a bit. But one of the reasons that this society came about is I'm coming to all of you with 9 years of experience at University of Maryland School of Nursing as the Associate Director of Student Placements. And during those 9 years, I attended several conferences, where most of us are in higher education, whether on the academic or practice side, we're all about learning and growing. And at those conferences, I never felt like I belonged. None of the sessions were ever placement related. Everything was about student services or registration, all very important things and important pieces of the puzzle. However, none of that really resonated with me. And so, what you'll learn today is the group that has come together, our mission, our vision, our goals for really, creating this community and creating this platform is to give everyone a forum to come together to better the profession, which eventually will better the overall nursing workforce. But we thought that it was about time that all of us had a place to raise our voices and do what was best for those in our profession. So again, very excited to welcome you aboard. And if it goes to show how much this is resonating with others, this is very new for us, although the founders and I have been working on this group for well over a year just to establish some of the business aspects of it. We are in the very infant stages of developing everything and really making sure that what we're putting together and what all of you are joining is a professional society that will provide the tools and resources that will help you. And so a lot of what you'll see today is our hope to build a community, to really get your input and your feedback to guide what we're able to provide as a national society. When we were initially putting this together, we were like, wow, this is so new. We would be thrilled to have even 20 people on this summit. We sent the information out to all of our professional networks, and you'll get to know who all of the founders are and where we come from in a bit. But as of this morning, there were 183 people registered for this summit. And so it is just heartwarming to see that it's not just us, it's not just our passion. So many of you out there are also feeling this and really looking for that avenue to meet with like-minded people and do a better job for yourself, for your schools, for your hospitals, and ultimately for your students and for your nurses. I do want to mention also that this society is meant for placement professionals, both on the academic and on the hospital side. So if you come from either area, you are in the right place and we want to hear from you. So thank you again for joining. I do want to go over just a few housekeeping items. If you wouldn't mind keeping yourself muted throughout the summit, we will have some open discussions a little bit later after some of the presentations. And when appropriate, we'll just ask that anyone who wants to share something or ask a question, put their name in the chat, and we'll call on you to unmute and go ahead and share your thought, ask your question. Otherwise, we will also, after two of our presenters, one is our sponsor, the others are from the Maryland DC Collaborative. We'll make sure that we have an opportunity for question and answer after that. And same thing, we'll ask that you put your name in the chat and then we'll call on you to unmute. We will not have a break during this 2 hours, and so please just be mindful of that. And at this point, I would love to go ahead and thank our sponsor. Abby, do you mind going to the next slide? Oh, apologies. So first, follow us on LinkedIn, all about the social media. We do also have a website created, and we'll make sure that we put that information in the link and then provide it at the end of the presentation so everyone can visit, get updates, and make sure that everyone is abreast of what's going on with the Society of Clinical Placement Professionals. Now to thank the sponsor. always have to be appreciative of where the money is coming from, right? But I have to say, our sponsor for today is very near and dear. Exact is a software company that offers placement platforms, software tools to help with the placement process, everything from recruitment to onboarding and student notifications. They have been a wonderful partner in my role as a placement professional, and so we're very excited to welcome them just to share a little bit about what they do and how they may be able to work with your organization to help with any process improvements. I believe next we are on the agenda. And so we've gotten through the welcome. Again, anyone who's joined a little late, welcome. We are so happy to see such a diverse group of folks from across the country. Next, we'll get into our history and mission and just some of the foundational aspects. Do you mind going back to the agenda, Abby? Thank you. Just some of the foundational aspects and some of our pillars of again, why and what our goals are for this organization. We are going to share some very exciting information about a publication that we've been working on for quite some time now. We do have, again, a presentation from the Maryland DC Collaborative, just a wonderful collaboration between both hospital and academic partners in the MDV, Maryland, DC, and Virginia area. And we are thrilled to have them come on just to share their journey, their wins, their successes, and possibly even some losses, because hey, we don't all get it right the first time. We will have a presentation again from the owner of Exact, one of the software management companies for student placements. And then we're going to have two open forum discussions, one about networking and one about innovation, which you'll learn are two of our pillars for this national society. So if I haven't said it enough, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Danielle McCamey to just share a little bit about the history of the society, how we came about, and how we got to where we are now.
Thank you, Kristy. Hey, y'all. I am Danielle McCamey. So excited that we are hosting our first virtual summit. So, just to give you a little bit of background, Abby, if you could just advance the slide. So, there's always a backstory. So, the backstory to our organization is a couple years back, we were applying for a HRSA grant. And this grant required regional collaboration. And so I went um, on a wonderful journey to recruit different academic and practice partners for this grant throughout the region that the HRSA grant had wanted us to recruit from. Unfortunately, we didn't get the grant, but we ended up, what I found was when I went back to circle with the folks that agreed to join us in collaborating on this grant, that they still wanted to work together to have an opportunity to network in some way or just to have like a think tank forum around academic practice partnerships in our particular region. And so, Ab, if you can advance. So, fall back.
Dr. McCamey, would you mind speaking up just a little bit louder?
Yeah,
I see a
sure.
comment in the notes that it's a little difficult to hear you.
Okay, let me speak a little bit louder.
Thank you.
So from the HRSA grant, mad dash to try to recruit people to get the coins, to we didn't get the coins, to people still wanting to network and collaborate, we ended up creating the Academic Practice Collaborative Network. And this literally was just an unofficial group. We met quarterly and we decided to come up with three subcommittees. One committee was around policy, one committee was around preceptors, and one in particular was around clinical placement professionals. Because at the time when I was Dean of Practice, I worked very closely with a lot of clinical placement professionals. And I was like, do you all have a professional society? I would like to send my staff to a professional society. And there was not one professional society dedicated to this group of professionals. So I was like, you know what? Let's create one. So if you could advance the slide. So throughout this group, the Academic Practice Collaborative Network, we started networking, we bounced ideas, and we collaborated on a couple of initiatives. And the main initiative that came out, next slide, is the Society of Clinical Placement Professionals. I pitched it to Kristy. She was like, yes. I pitched it to Abby, Carly, Tamiya, and the rest is history. And so for me, I'm used to kind of navigating spaces and identifying gaps and creating something. So I pitched to them, I was like, let's get this going. And I believe we can have a membership and a summit within a year. And everyone looked at me like I was a little bit ambitious, but I'm proud of us that we managed to get 501(c)(3) status and have our first virtual annual summit and present to you with some of our major accomplishments. So, welcome to our first summit of the Society of Clinical Placement Professionals. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning or afternoon, depending on what side of the country you're on. My name is Carly Pasquale, and I'm the Director of Clinical Operations from the UNLV School of Nursing. I am so happy to be a part of this collaborative, and I'm going to read off our mission and vision that we have created within this group. And so our mission is to advance the clinical placement profession through education, networking, strategic innovations, and advocacy. And our vision is transforming the clinical placement profession and cultivating collaboration to grow academic practice partnerships and a sustainable future healthcare workforce. Next slide.
All righty. And our pillars. In order to accomplish the mission and the vision, there were 4 different areas where we really saw the greatest need, not only amongst the placement community, but the greatest gaps in the nursing workforce. And those 4 pillars that we really look to stand the society up on and provide the resources in are education, networking, strategic innovation, and advocacy. So education should be the easy one. Again, we are all coming from either academic institutions or from the practice side, whether at a hospital or at a primary care practice. In this industry, we are all about educating ourselves, making ourselves better every day, making our workforce better every day. And so as a national society, we want to share best practices, really create a standard of excellence to ensure that everyone is doing the right thing by our students and by the patients that need our graduates once they're done. With networking, again, we're hoping that with this national society, we're able to connect folks regardless of where your work is. You're going to hear the success story about a collaboration that came out of the DMV area. Maybe this is something that you can adopt in your area. And so some of the resources that we're really hoping to offer are to connect you based upon where you see the biggest challenges or where you have the biggest issues within your placement role. With strategic innovation, need I say more? Innovation is the name of the game here. Things are always changing. We are in an ever-evolving world. And then you throw the healthcare industry on top of that, and you're looking at multiple changes a day. And so, from the innovation standpoint, we're really looking to make sure that we can share out what is one person doing that's working really well for them that others can adopt to really improve their processes and again, make the experience better for those involved. And so I think that that's an area where it will be great to hear your voices and really see what's unique about how you're handling your roles. Now, with the advocacy piece, we are going to start a little slow here. Dr. McCamey did share that as an organization, we are a 501(c)(3). In order for us as a society to be able to advocate for, again, nursing education, nursing placements, we need to have the 501(c)(6) designation. And that's something that we hope to work on over the next couple years. So for now, in the advocacy realm, what we'd like to do is really get the information out there. And so everyone is aware of what the policies are, what the laws are that affect you, and equip you with the information for you to go out and write your senators, your legislators, anyone who can impact any of these policies that either allow us to or not to do our job successfully. Next slide, please. and our founders. So we likely should have introduced ourselves in the beginning, but we were so excited about sharing the foundation of this organization. So again, I'm Kristy Novak. I am the president of the Society of Clinical Placement Professionals and one of your co-founders. I am coming into this role with 9 years of experience at University of Maryland, Associate Director of Student Placements. I primarily worked with the DNP students with their clinical rotations. Currently, I am the Director of Community Education at Howard Community College, managing their youth programs, programs for adults with developmental disabilities, as well as personal enrichment and music programs with some other programs potentially being added in. However, through all of those roles, I've always held a leadership capacity, and it has been really important to me just to really make sure that this group of professionals has everything that they need. And so I'm thrilled to continue working with these ladies. Emery Kent, our treasurer, is unfortunately unable to join us today. She is going through a lot of very exciting life changes at this point and could not join. But Emery is joining us from Georgia. She works for Humana, so she is on the practice side.
And again, my name is Carly Pasquale. I am the Director of Clinical Operations for the UNLV School of Nursing. I facilitate and coordinate the clinical placement of both our graduate and undergraduate students. We have multiple programs, including our BSN, Direct Entry Masters, Family Nurse Practitioner, Psychiatric Mental Health Nurse Practitioner, Midwifery, and very soon our CRNA programs. And so I work with all of our programs to ensure that our students are placed and going to clinical. And I was very fortunate to be introduced to Dr. McCamey and the rest of this group by my previous Associate Dean of Advanced Education. And I feel incredibly fortunate because I personally am a newbie myself in this realm. And so these ladies have been phenomenal resources to me. And I think you'll be able to also feel that as a whole, this society will be a phenomenal resource for everybody. So welcome.
Hey everyone, I'm Abby Smetana. I am a program manager for the Advanced Practice Provider Education Office at Maine Health. And so one of my roles is to help facilitate a more streamlined approach to placements across the health system.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamiya Blount. I am a program manager with the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, and also one of the Society of Clinical Placement Professionals co-founders. I've been in healthcare and education for a while now, and I mainly focus on clinical placements, compliance, and process improvements, having a background in program management. I was introduced to the society through a mentor of mine, Dr. Danielle McCamey. She's also responsible for my introduction to clinical placements as well. And I'm excited to be with you all today.
Hey y'all, Danielle McCamey. I am faculty at Hopkins. I have been dabbling in academic practice partnerships all my career. Formerly served as our Dean of Clinical Practice and Relationships, which is kind of was my introduction into launching this space. So excited to share time and space with you. And I'm zooming in from Bmore. Where y'all at?
Okay, so as we've all mentioned in one way, shape, or form, we are all new to this Society of Clinical Placement Professionals. And we wanted to share with you our impact to date. So what we've been up to over the last year or two as we've really taken this to the next level. So one of the things that we are most proud of is that we currently have a manuscript under review with the Journal of Professional Nursing. And we're going to just talk about some of the things that we covered in this paper. And so within the paper, we start off by defining the role. That can be kind of hard to describe because for many of us, we have different roles and oftentimes different titles. So there are some of us that may feel that there's a lack of recognition for the work being done, either due to title or because of there's so much work that is done behind the scenes and it often goes unrecognized. We then list out many of the responsibilities managed by clinical placement professionals to include placement coordination, preceptor recruitment and engagement, regulatory and compliance management, student onboarding and communication, and evaluation of student experience in clinical facilities. We also draw attention to the fact that in order for a clinical placement professional to effectively carry out these responsibilities, they really have to possess a strong foundation of knowledge related to student curriculum requirements, accreditation standards, preceptor experience and credentials, and specific clinical site requirements. We also make mention of some of the issues and challenges often faced by the people doing this work. For example, when we think about placement staffing, it really varies. So it ranges from faculty members or administrators who take this on as an additional responsibility to having a single person serve in this role for the entire department, to those who have fully built out teams to manage the placement process. For those working with pre-licensure students, increasing challenges are seen in competition amongst different nursing programs who are competing for the same placement. This competition for all the placements helps really kind of highlight the need for us to all to get together to solve these problems. There's high turnover rates and preceptor burnout, which negatively impact placement opportunities, which also impact student enrollment capabilities. So I'm certain that, as I mentioned, the topic of preceptor incentives, that many of you have stories that you can share with us about how this topic has impacted your ability to be successful in the placement environment. Many of us have seen an increase in financial compensation opportunities for preceptors. And while that offer of a financial incentive may entice a preceptor to agree to work with a student, the impact of financial incentives can lead to concerns such as the use of third-party clinical placement companies, which creates a competitive advantage, and it can also potentially create a conflict of interest when a preceptor is only willing to work with a student that's tied to a financial incentive. So lastly, issues and challenges exist when students reach out to preceptors on their own to seek clinical placement rotation opportunities. While this might be necessary for institutions that don't have dedicated clinical placement professionals or the capacity to carry out intensive outreach, it does really highlight the importance of clinical placement professionals, as students can become stressed while carrying out the dual burden of being a student and also seeking placement. This stress can cause them to delay graduation or take a leave of absence due to a lack of a willing preceptor. And we all know that this type of scenario creates a snowball effect, because they may delay entry into the workforce and also increase their tuition debt. So we conclude the paper by calling for the need for clinical placement professionals to be recognized for the work that we do, the importance of creating a professional organization and a community for clinical placement professionals, and the need to collaborate. We also see the need for a dedicated forum to discuss best practices, share innovative solutions to universal challenges, network with peers, and advocate for standardized policies and resources. So we're going to pause here after we shared our topic content for the white paper, and we really want to hear from you. So we are going to open up a poll and ask a series of questions that we hope you will choose to share with us, because we want to hear from you. So let me relaunch this poll here. Take a moment. We'd love to hear how many of you are working within the hospital system and how many are working on the academic side. What is the size of the placement team that you're a part of? How many students do you serve each academic year? We'd like to hear from you in terms of whether what we talked about within the white paper resonates with anyone. And then we'd also like to know, what is your biggest challenge? So take a minute, complete that poll, and then we'll take a look at the results. few more seconds. We're only at 38% participation. Come on, we can do better. We want to know. If for some reason you don't have the ability to complete the poll, we will be sending out a follow-up survey and we'll ask similar questions so we can still kind of capture your response and your input. All
Abby,
right.
are you able to get like a snapshot in
Yep.
real time as to what's happening? Okay, cool.
Yes, as soon as I end the poll. Oh, we're so close. Come on. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and then share the results. There we go. Let me see if I can do that. Can you see the results? Okay. So there's quite a few people here from the academic side. Interestingly, the size of the placement team, the majority of folks are working on a team that's only 1 to 3 persons in size.
Wow.
We have the majority of folks, so 50% are serving 100 to 400 students per academic year. Well, we've got some down here that are got some pretty high numbers, 1,600. And this is interesting and validating, right? So the majority of people feel like their work is not being recognized. So we recognize you. We're here. This is what this whole community is all about. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing these results. And I'm going to pass it on to Tamiya.
Thank you, Abby. I'm glad you mentioned community because it's exactly what the Society of Clinical Placement Professionals is. It's essentially a community built for us, by us. So if you could advance to the next slide, please. We essentially built SECP because there wasn't really a space that truly reflected us as clinical placement professionals. We do essential work behind the scenes that supports the future of the healthcare workforce directly. And it's our purpose to uplift this work and build connection and advocacy and also share innovations. So you as clinical placement professionals are the reason that this community exists. You're the connectors, the problem solvers, the gatekeepers, and it's time that we built a network that celebrates that. Next slide. Essentially, connection is the key. We want to collaborate, learn from one another, unite, and grow, especially because we know this work can feel isolating. Whether you're swapping templates or learning from peers or even building cross-institutional partnerships, collaboration is how we will grow and do great work and continue to do great work. The tools and solutions already exist, and whether that be across state lines or through a Zoom screen, we're here to connect us. Next slide, please. And as mentioned, we wear multiple hats, whether working in compliance, tech, student support. A lot of the work that we do goes under the radar. So SECP is all about redefining that narrative and really honing in on the fact that as clinical placement professionals, we're not just doing tasks, we're building careers. And we wanted to create a standard of practice and support professional development, and also ensure that the field of clinical placements is recognized for the strategic and high impact of the work that we do. So as Abby mentioned, we will be sharing a post-summit survey, and the goal is to get more feedback. We're inviting you to tell us what's working, what's missing, and what would make your job easier so that we can help you and provide you with that. The post-summit survey will be a guide for future resources, events, tools, and your voice matters. And now I believe we have a discussion from our partners. I'll hand it over to them.
Thank you so much, Tamiya. So again, I hope all of you can see the exciting work that we have been doing with the society behind the scenes over the past year and a half. Tamiya could not have said it any better. We want your feedback. We want to know how we can help you. So please keep an eye out for that survey when we're done, and we will use that data to inform decisions. Do we do quarterly newsletters? Do we have another event in the fall? So there are a lot of different things that we can do with this to bring people together, to bridge the gap and make sure that you have what you need. So it is very exciting for me to introduce these next two ladies who are going to come up and talk about their success with a regional collaboration. Actually both of whom I've worked with very closely, and they could not be any smarter, more organized, more passionate about what they do and serving their students. So I'd like to share some quick bios, just so you have an idea of their background and perspective. So first, Lori Harris is the director of the Office of Registration and Student Placements at the University of Maryland School of Nursing, with over 20 years at UM Baltimore, focusing on the expansion of opportunities for nursing students. She's currently working on a statewide implementation for streamlining the placement request and onboarding of students to community sites. We've also got Laura Smith, who is the Nursing Student Placements Coordinator for the Johns Hopkins Hospital and Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center. She's active in statewide collaborative work to improve the process for student placements and onboarding to enhance the clinical opportunities and experience for nursing students in Maryland. She's a 19-year Johns Hopkins employee and has been supporting academic partnerships in her current role for the past 10 years. So you can see both of these ladies have been in their fields doing what they're doing for about 20 years now, and have a really unique and great perspective to share. So without further ado, Lori and Laura, the proverbial microphone is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Laura Smith, and I can start us off on this. And I did not know you were going to pull that photo. It looks nice.
You look
I also
lovely.
have to confess that I'm having some very technical issues, and so I'm on my phone. So I'm sorry if that comes across poorly here. But yeah, so my name's Laura Smith, and Kristy shared a lot about what the work I do, and I know that you guys all speak that language. So I think it will go without saying that several years ago, we decided, why do we do it this way? And we all began to have these conversations together. You can go to the next slide. Sorry, I don't have. So this is a bit of a history for the work that we have done. So essentially what we found is that I was sitting here on the hospital side thinking, oh, everything is okay. And the schools can come in and do the way we need. And I need these requirements. And then the schools were having that conversation, 10 and 15 times over at all the different sites. And it just continued to be present. Like this doesn't seem helpful. It doesn't seem supportive. And it seems like very burdensome. So essentially, these conversations were happening over and over and over again in isolation. And so then we kept kind of expanding that group. In the state of Maryland, we had a really successful effort to standardize the student onboarding training and like the education that they do. So in lieu of going to each of the hospitals and completing bloodborne pathogens and infection control, we designed I think it's 11 modules, and I was part of that work group. And so now the clinical students do that set of modules, and they don't have to do them again at each of the hospitals that they do their clinicals at. So that's one example of the success of this. And so that group kind of then bore into a larger group, and then we started talking about the vendor and all this extra effort. And so ultimately, in the fall of 2022, we thought we had a group together and we were going to try to make some progress together. But then we realized that the group was incomplete. We didn't have all of the appropriate people at the table. Some of the people we were talking to had a lot of turnover. And so we recalibrated. And then in the spring of 2023, we sent out new invitations to say, hey, let's all come together, hospitals and schools. let's talk about our process. What's good, what's bad, let's bring it together. And a lot of this was also kind of initiated by the general dissatisfaction with the compliance vendor that we were using at the time. And so that was kind of the precipice for us coming together. But we put out a lot of surveys, we had a lot of conversations, and we were able to develop this kind of collaborative and a structure that helped us gain some progress. Concurrently, like on the top of this timeline, what I want to highlight is that our Maryland Hospital Association also was having these conversations about nursing workforce pipeline issues. What are the barriers to, getting nurses at the bedside? What are the barriers of that? And so that work group found that the pipeline was difficult to maintain due to clinical barriers, getting students into the clinical setting. I saw this quote, or I saw this fact that some programs have up to 50% simulation because they couldn't get in-person, face-to-face clinical time. And so they highlighted that as a major recommendation, that we need to create a process and work on that. And so concurrently, we were already working on it. So we were able to connect with the MHA, and they've been very supportive of our effort to kind of align with how do we decrease the barriers to getting students from the academic side into the clinical setting for training. So I'm gonna actually skip the rest of our timeline because I think you can see it here. I want to talk more about the design that we've had. So our vision and mission is it's very basic. The purpose and vision of this is to increase the number of nurses for the state of Maryland and the DC region, which is where Maryland DC comes from, the MDDC. Our vision for this is to ease the workflow of obtaining clinical nursing placement opportunities in the healthcare setting for clinical instruction and patient care, which will enhance academic and practice partnerships. So we want to leverage our partnerships, we want to maintain that rapport, and then ultimately we want to provide clinical opportunities and then train up nurses so they can move on and then become nurses. All right, next slide. Our goals and objectives were created when we first started. And this came out of various surveys that we as members created. So again, it sounds similar to what the society is going to be doing in terms of like what works, what doesn't, and then that will kind of help drive the workflow. So that's essentially what we did too. One of our major objectives is just to do this, to convene a group of stakeholders. So to allow for networking and resource sharing. And so that has been incredibly valuable. Amongst the other objectives is what then help bore our subcommittee work. So we're all volunteering. We have no formal budget or anything like that to be paying this work. So we're all volunteering to kind of help facilitate these meetings and to maintain these discussions. So I'll highlight the other objectives when we talk about our subcommittees, which are on the next slide. Thank you. So from these discussions, we developed 4 different subcommittees, again, of what are the highest priorities. And then we encouraged every attendee of our collaborative meetings to join a subcommittee. Each of the subcommittees has a point of contact, not a chair, not anyone responsible for the work. And that person's job is only to make sure that we're meeting. We try and do it every other month. So 1 month subcommittees meet, and then the next month we meet virtually together as a whole group. But our subcommittees are this: partnership and communication. That was began because what we learned early on was that I was accepting and working on placements in one way because I thought everybody did it that way. And that was based upon partner levels, like who my partners were from a hospital, academic partners. And then half the room had no idea what I was talking about. And I was under the impression that we were all operating under the same page. So that was part of that communication. We developed clinical calendars. We had no shared place to share any of this information. So a lot of these conversations were happening in isolation. The clinical placement process is what Lori will talk more on, but that is the vendor. Right now, it was like, if we can all commit to finding one way to get the students' documents from the school to the hospital, That will be a gift. Students don't have to have multiple logins. I, at the hospital, don't have to get an email attachment with 500 pages in a PDF. So that process was so important, and we decided that that process needed to be the priority, and that's where we've made the most progress. Compliance requirements, that's what that educational agreement talks about, and we'll get into that some more. And then clinical practice expectations. So this involves nursing student scope. What can they do at one hospital versus what they can do at another? That typically varies pretty substantially. And so that is, again, kind of what's driving our work based upon what we kind of felt like the priorities were in our group. All right, next slide. All right, so this is like our details. So we have 33 clinical site partners and 22 academic partners, and this is all across the state of Maryland. DC, we're finding a lot of new faces are coming up from DC just to kind of listen and learn more about it. Like I said, we meet in person twice a year. We try and hash out a bunch of important things, reprioritize, get a lot of buy-in that way. And then our subcommittees meet every other month. And then we do meet virtually for every other, like on the opposite months, to try to make sure that we're coming together. Subcommittee say, here's what we're doing. This is what we need buy-in on. And so it's been, that is the commitment to the work at the moment. Next slide. All right, so this is more about the work that we've done as subcommittees. So the next slide talks about subcommittee 1, which is one that I'm very active in. So this is partnerships and communication. So structure, transparency, and enhancing access has become our unofficial slogan, because it's just been, it can feel very cyclical. And I'm sure we've all had the same conversation about the same barriers over and over and over again. And so this is kind of what kind of keeps recalibrating us if we find that we're kind of having a hard time processing through a situation. So the goal of our subcommittee when it comes to structure was we created a clinical calendar that we put out that each hospital needs to have their availabilities in for groups to request by a certain date, schools request based upon their tier partnership. And then we have these little many informal deadlines that we all try to honor to make sure we're moving forward at the same time. So schools put the requests in, I review them in a timely manner by a certain date, and so on and so forth. We try to set a deadline of like when the placements need to be made and when I at a hospital get the compliance requirements. Sorry, I'm looking at this. Oh, it just helps provide structure for requesting placements. It removes this first come, first serve. I learned a lot from my academic partners that when it came to requesting groups, now again, most of our focus right now have been on groups, and I'll try and say that pre-licensure clinical groups. But you know, I learned about colleagues who would wait at like 8:58 and be sitting there, and then at 9 o'clock they would go frantically trying to find their placements. And so our structure has helped alleviate some of that stress and that burden and the first come, first serve mentality. The transparency factor is because what we learned is that some schools were saying, I can't get in there. I can't get the placements there. I need these specialties, and no matter what I do, I can't do it. And nobody understood why. So it helps kind of have everyone understand where they stand with the hospital. Every school now has partners with the hospital. We worked hard to create those. And then again, that just transitions right into enhancing access. So specialties are hard to come by. So does every school have a hospital partner that can give them a specialty of pediatrics, of OB? Is that reasonable? Is that hospital a reasonable distance that the students can travel to? So those are all the things that we've been trying to consider. And that's, again, kind of driving our work forward when it comes to this. I think the next slide talks more about the partnerships, and I'm going to go through that really quickly because I don't want to go too far, but we move to the next slide. So the partnership piece, we went back and forth on for many weeks and months in conversations. I grew up not grew up, oh my gosh. I started in this work and I had, here's your partners. I was told what I had. I did everything off of that, and it was based upon degree level. So I had a senior partner school, which I'm from Johns Hopkins. So my senior partner school was Johns Hopkins School of Nursing. And it goes without saying that I was like, yeah, we're going to accommodate most of these requests. So I learned not every school had a senior partner hospital. And I learned that not every hospital had senior partner schools. And so they did not have that same dynamic. And in an effort to create the structure and to create transparency, we worked really hard to continue partnerships in what feels like a much more equitable way. So this is how we've defined our partnership. So we have a tier 1 partner, or multiple tier 1 partners, depending on the size. And then we have the tier 2 partners, which is everybody else. So this is the definition, and I'll let you read it because I know it's been up there for a minute. But again, the goal of this is just to create structure for reliable placements and for maintaining the rapport locally. All right, Lori, I'll let you go. I'm sorry for taking a few extra minutes. Is Lori here?
Lori, you're on mute. And while she unmutes, is it just me or does everyone love Lori's syringe pen that she has been
Sorry.
writing
I was
with?
just taking it sorry. The great swag that I borrow from admissions at all times because they have the best swag. Thank you, everybody. Again, thank you, Kristy, for inviting us. We're really excited to talk to colleagues from all over. So the big thing that we wanted to do was to make the clinical placement process better so that we could uncover new opportunities, and so that we could make it a better experience for our students. So we went looking. We went looking for what we really wanted, and a vendor was a sort of an ecosystem, something that could take that had what the partners, our clinical site partners needed, as well as our academic partners in one place so that students could go one place, site partners and academic partners, and we would have all of this wonderful data. So we set up criteria to vet vendors. We had vendors come in through various ways and they had to meet the criteria. We all had a voice in assessing how well they met the criteria. And then we developed an implementation plan on how to everybody on board into the selected vendor, as well as how we maintain our plan. We have some long-term goals. We have tools that we want to measure as we're doing this process. But the real goals is better student opportunities. We want to make data-driven decisions about how we site partners offering the slots, as well as how schools ask for them and take advantage of those. And so we've been really happy so far. We have done a pilot. We are now finished a soft launch, and then our plan, of course, is to do the full launch for fall 2025. We are, as Laura said, started with our entry into practice groups because those are the largest numbers. Those are where we all are trying to find the sand in the sandbox. So that's where we've really concentrated. But our goal, of course, is to expand into our practicum and then our graduate as well, those one-on-one matches. And we did choose Exact as our vendor. And so we are, again, coming into the final phase for a full implementation. If I could have the next slide. Okay, so the subcommittee 3 was also to handle another big pain point. All of the different partners would have different types of requirements, right? So that our students were constantly having to jump or change or delay being able to start because they were different placements. So the thing was to develop a standardized list that would apply to all of the hospitals for educational opportunities for students. We had site partners and representatives from academics. They then came up with a list. They went through and had it checked through their agencies to see if there was anything that would pop up or could be a challenge. And then they brought it back to the group to have us give any input. And now we are all, one of the great things about the collaborative, once we come together as a group, then we each go back to our institutions and start jumping through all of the processes and procedures in order to get these things implemented. And the next one for me, thank you. We're calling it our universal health requirements. And those are uploaded into the compliance tool that's part of Exact called Approve. And then that way we are hoping that it's an efficient process of just goes from approve into their onboarding for the site, and then magic, they're all ready to go, right? Without the hours and hours of the academic partners checking each thing and then bundling them all up and then sending them to the site partners so then they can recheck. So we're hoping to alleviate thousands of human hours in doing that process. So we'll do the next one. And then, as Laura said, the subcommittee 4, it's looking at scope, of course, of what nursing students can do in the hospital, but we're also looking for a smooth transition to the workforce. How can we, as schools, make meaningful experiences and learning activities for students, so that, because of course, what the end goal is for them to be great healthcare professionals. We are also expanding this, so it's not just we've started with nursing, but it's always with the goal of the other healthcare, allied healthcare professions who do join and come into the MDDC collaborative. So I think, Laura, if you want to talk about our plans for the future.
Sure. Yeah. So before I move on, I do want to give credit because I know there's a lot of New England folks here. I was able to meet with a great group from Connecticut, and I don't know if any of you guys are here, but I do want to give you guys credit too, because it's not like Maryland is not the first state to do this work. I know Connecticut's been coming together too in a similar type collaborative, and I know the state of Colorado does too. So I want to make sure we're giving the credit and acknowledging that work too. But I do appreciate being able to chat about this. So our next steps with this is, one, to continue to meet. I can't always stress that enough. Like, I have been the squeakiest wheel when it comes to really trying to modify this work and to update it. And I thankfully have great leadership that is really supportive of my contributions to this. So we are really working hard to establish this collaborative formally. So we are trying to make sure that CNOs in our local hospitals know about the work that we do as clinical placement professionals. I can't, like, that is always how I start. I say, did you know that this is the work being done? Same when we meet with deans and directors. I say, did you know that this is the work being done? Because I think that there is just a lack of awareness as to what has always gone into this work. So we really want to well establish ourselves and give the voice to these roles as they need, just as this society is doing for us as well. So we're going to hone in on our organizational process, our organizational leadership ladder, and try to really formalize this so we can, come to the table feeling well established is the effort. And rapport that we develop between hospitals and schools, especially when we get to meet in person. But just knowing what the person looks like that you're talking to, having information and context for why they've had to make the changes, understanding, like, right now we're in 3 different systems and we're transitioning to all sorts of things. Like, how are we able to support and communicate to each other in the process? Also, what does this mean for our future nursing staff? Like, that's the whole goal of this, right? Is get these students in and out and trained to become nurses. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. We are well over time. But Lori, is there another slide? I can't remember. I don't think there is.
I don't think so.
But that is us. That is the work that we've been doing. And it's been very rewarding, extremely motivating to kind of keep our nose down, because we're feeling like we're seeing change already, which is nice. So.
Well, thank you, Laura and Lori. That was amazing. And I do appreciate you calling out some of the other collaboratives across the nation, because again, we don't work in a bubble. And I think that there's so much strength and power in connecting with individuals who might be doing the same thing with the same agenda, but in a very different way, where we can implement that where we work in our spaces with our partners and our students. So this has been incredibly helpful. I was very fortunate to be part of this MDDC for quite some time, and I can tell you it's an amazing group. Everyone is so knowledgeable, passionate about what they're doing, and the accomplishments that they've been able to make have just been breathtaking. So we are doing great on time. I would like to take about 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions for Laura or Lori, please go ahead and put your name in the chat. We may only be able to take a few questions, just depending on the extent of the answer. But if anyone has anything that they'd like to say or ask of Lori or Laura, please put your name in the chat now. All right, no questions. Well, again, thank you both so much for joining us. The next presentation that we have is from Exat, who we've already heard quite a lot about. They are not only our sponsor for the event, but a platform that many of us in the area have used for quite some time. Version 1, 2, now we're on version 4, and so we've kind of grown and evolved with the organization. One of the owners, Kunal Vaishnav, he is jumping on right now. And so as soon as we see him, Abby, let's go ahead and let him in, and we will give him the microphone. I cannot say enough about this organization. At University of Maryland, we were very fortunate to begin working with them when they were a little bit smaller and working with some other disciplines like physical therapy. And then as they got into nursing, they connected with myself and Lori, and we were able to implement them. They have grown leaps and bounds over the last decade or so. And one thing that I'd like to give a shout out for is, just how they listen to their customers. A lot of the platform is very customizable, and they've really taken a lot of time with the adoption of new versions to listen to their stakeholders, listen to their customers, and really make it a platform that works for us. So I understand that Kunal is now here. So Kunal, if you'd like to go ahead and pop your camera on and unmute, we'd love to hear you share just a little bit about Exat and what it can do for placement professionals.
Hi, Kristy, can you hear us?
I can. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Hi, nice to meet you all, and congratulations for first of all starting this first inaugural session. When Kristy had mentioned this to me, this is fantastic, by the way. Getting a work group together, creating a society for clinical placement professionals, I think is going to be invaluable because all of you are trying to solve the same problem, whether you are a program sitting in California or Maryland or Florida or Texas, you guys are all trying to solve the same problem. So first of all, congratulations to Kristy and her team for facilitating this. As we Hi, Laura. As we think about Exat, I wanted to little bit talk about the history of the company. We work with 1,500 different health science programs across the country. The visionary behind Exat is Arti, who is the CEO of the company and the CEO of my life also. We have been married for the past 25 years, but she is the one who created the company 10 plus years ago. And at that point in time, our focus was just, hey, how do we solve clinical placement needs for a few disciplines, physical therapy, occupational therapy? But over the past 10 years, we have noticed that the clinical placement problem is just not limited to particular disciplines. It's across the entire spectrum of different disciplines. So we have now expanded our scope of services to 80 different disciplines now: PT, OT, physician assistant, social work, nursing, undergraduate, graduate, CRNA. We have art therapy, music therapy, speech language pathology, any and all kinds of programs that use Exat right now. And the reason I mentioned that is while every discipline has its own unique flavor in terms of accreditation requirements, in terms of standards they want to meet, at the end of the day, the problem of clinical placements and trying to coordinate with your site contacts remains the same. So we are trying to create a software that allows you to better manage all aspects of your clinical placement processes in one single system. Now, if you want to flip ahead, when we first started Exat, our focus was just on the academic institutions and the school side. But if you think about the ecosystem that we all play in, there are three legs of the stool, right? You have the schools who are trying to place students at the different hospitals and sites. You have the hospital systems, the big hospital systems, who are trying to take in the students from a clinical placement perspective. And sometimes they have different systems. They might have software vendors that you might all be painfully aware of, where you have to go to all of those different vendors and make those placement requests. And they also use those different vendors from an onboarding tracking perspective. So when we think about this space, we also wanted to create a platform that not only can be used by the school side, but the hospital side. So Exact One is a platform that we have recently rolled out, and I think Laurie and Laura were on right before me talking about the implementation of Exact One in the Maryland DC collaborative there. But this is the platform that connects schools and hospitals together in one single system. If the hospitals are using Exact, if the schools are using Exact, all of the data ties to each other, talks to each other. If the student completes paperwork on Exact side, on the school side of things, their immunizations, their background checks, their drug screenings, right? They don't have to take that and transmit. You guys don't have to take that and do something manually into the hospital system. The hospital systems are also able to publish their availabilities on Exact One in some kind of a platform. And our vision with Exact One actually is broad. If you think about, if you were to travel from Los Angeles to Boston, you could go on kayak and say, show me all of the flights which go between Los Angeles to Boston, and you can make your decision right there. However, when we think about clinical placements, whether you are a DCE trying to place your students, or your students are expected to find their own placements, whatever the model is, there is no way, there is no database today that allows you to look at what are the available opportunities in the nation. Yes, there are some homegrown systems. I think there is in California, we have CCPS, in Tennessee, we have TCPS, in Massachusetts, we have a system, but those are state specific systems. Our vision with Exact One is to create this broad consortium of hospital systems and sites. And we have just started with Maryland DC Collaborative, where the hospitals can put all of their availabilities, and the schools are able to look at them, make reservation requests, and are able to track all of that through Exact One platform. And we have both the school side and the hospital side connected with each other there. From a student's perspective, that's a third leg of the stool in the ecosystem. Students, when they're about to graduate, what do they look for? First, jobs, right? Workforce in healthcare right now, workforce management and shortages are the number one issue, right? Along with paucity of clinical sites. So from a student perspective also, Exact One will be extended not only to help them onboard on the hospital systems down the line, but also when they're going out and looking for their first jobs, or they want to create their profile from a credentialing perspective if they become preceptors or clinical instructors at hospitals. So our vision is to also serve that community as we expand the Exact One platform here. Moving on, Kristy. All right. From an academic institution's perspective, we have a platform, moving on, called Exact Prism. And what Prism is essentially a platform that allows you to manage all of your aspects of clinical education in one single system. So being able to manage all of your affiliation agreements that you have with your hospital partners, being able to track when does the agreement expire, be able to track all of the compliance, immunizations, health documents. If you guys are using other vendor systems out there for immunization management, background checks, drug screenings, Exact provides all of that in one single system. Now, that way you don't have to contract with multiple vendors out there. Curriculum mapping and curriculum management is also built in. Right now in nursing, if you are a CCNE accredited program, I'm 100% sure your team and your faculty is talking about the new essentials and the move to competency-based education right now there. So a lot of the programs are using our curriculum mapping and competency tracker to essentially map their syllabi to the new essentials out there. If you're undergraduate program, to the QSEN competencies or any of the outcome information in the platform. Clinical placements can also be coordinated through Prism there. So being able to reach out to all of your sites asking for availability. And not only will it do that, you can also track your onboarding paperwork through Prism. And then last but not the least is learning activities. So think of learning activities as if you are a program where evaluations need to be completed. So your preceptors or clinical instructors have to evaluate your students. Your students have to provide your feedback on their rotations or the sites. any and all kinds of evaluation, exit surveys, graduation surveys, alumni surveys, admission surveys, all of that can be managed through the learning activity capability in Prism. Case logs, timesheets, all of that can be done. So our goal with Prism is to create a one-stop solution to manage everything that surrounds a program management process, including not only just clinical placements, but your compliance tracking, curriculum mapping, learning activities, and data management piece of it. So that's Prism. Moving on. Now, I wanted to specifically talk a little bit about nursing here. I'm assuming a few people are here from a nursing perspective, Kristy and team, both undergraduate and graduate from and who are CCNE accredited. If you are ACEN program accredited, that's fine also. But especially for CCNE and the move to new essentials, we have created a 3-step process where nursing programs who are thinking of moving to competency-based education, we can work with you to lay out a roadmap in terms of how do you think of designing an essential study curriculum to creating an assessment framework to then how do you measure and analyze those competencies. So all of the things that are important to a program that keeps them ready to move them into the CCNE process there. Going ahead. All right. Last but not the least, from a hospital and clinical site perspective, I do understand that we might not have hospital systems on the call today, but this is important for me to mention. If you go ahead, Kristy, please. When you think about Exact One, what we really want to do is create a process similar to the school side where the hospital systems can come on Exact One. They can manage all of the affiliation agreements from a hospital perspective. They can manage their availability down to a unit level there. They can create this open network where schools can search and request for placements. They can review and approve those placements, track students onboarding. And then most importantly, from a talent management, workforce management perspective, they will also be able to use this Exact One solution to recruit the employees of the future there. So tracking the students throughout the employment lifecycle, throughout the talent management lifecycle too there. And then I think that is it, if I'm not mistaken. Next one. Yeah, and I think Laurie and Laura might have already talked about this. There, we were chosen as the official compliance and placement vendor for a collaborative of 30 plus nursing programs and hospitals there. For first 30 days, first month of launching with the collaborative, we have had 4,000 placement requests, which were made on Exact One, just through Maryland, DC nursing schools there, and 30% of them are already approved there. So it just shows you the power of when people pool together and make a decision of having a single platform, how that streamlines the entire process instead of having point-based solutions out there. And that was my spiel, I think, Kristy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kunal. Again, Kunal and I have been working together for a very, very long time. Nothing but positive things to say. And when I tell you that their conferences are fun, their user are fun. Kunal and Artie know how to have a good time. So please keep an eye out for any information there. Kunal, I do have one question in the chat, and then if anyone else has any questions for Kunal, please either go ahead and put them in the chat or just put your name and I'll call on you. Kunal, it would also be very helpful if you could put any contact information that you'd like to share into the chat, just so anyone who's interested in reaching out to you individually has the opportunity to do so. But Melissa Reinhardt is asking if there's anything in Prism to help with posting open positions to students. Melissa, do you want to unmute and clarify if you mean open job positions, open rotations?
Yeah, I was talking about job positions. Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
Melissa, absolutely. That's the intent with Exact One, is we will be creating a job board where the hospitals can use and the sites actually. So we launched Exact One with physical therapy last year with the outpatient clinics. And this year we have a lot of hospitals going on. But the game plan is the hospitals can post their open jobs, like creating a national job board, right, in the system. And then your students will be able to review and apply for those open job positions based on where they are.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kunal. Oh, you're already getting compliments, Kunal. in the chat. Kunal's contact info was shared, Lori. So please look up above, Kunal.Vaishnav at exact.com. Did anyone else have any questions? Oh, thank you, Tamiya. Okay. So, Kunal and Nikki Meyer shared that you are one of the most responsive people that she has ever met.
Thank you, Nikki.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to see you again. Please tell Artie I said hi.
I will, 100%. Thank you, everyone, and great job, Kristy and the team. I think this is an absolute fantastic initiative. We love it.
Thank you so much. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Now we're going to get into an open discussion. And again, folks, this is where we want to hear from you. So Carly is going to go ahead and introduce everything, and then we'll let you know when we're ready for your input.
Yes, hi, thank you. And thank you so much to our guest speakers as well for their presentations today. Now we're going to start our networking session, and we're really excited to have this time to connect, share ideas, and build community. So I'm going to ask, if you haven't already, please go ahead and drop your name, your location, and your LinkedIn link in the chat to share with the society and everyone that has joined us today. If you have already done that, take a moment to scroll through and see who you might want to connect with. Maybe someone regionally, locally, maybe someone who is in a state where you have clinical placement concerns. And so go ahead and scroll and see who we can connect with. And I also want to open up the floor for anyone who has a unique practice academic placement strategy that has worked well in your setting. So please raise your hand if you'd like to share out loud any strategies that you and your team have used in the past. You can also share in your thoughts directly into the chat if you don't want to share vocally. But let's get this conversation going and start brainstorming about different strategies that have worked previously. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I will also share my LinkedIn.
And I'd love to say something, as we're asking everyone to share out. Please keep in mind that what you do that might seem so routine and as Laura Smith was sharing earlier, thinking that what she was doing was what everyone was doing, and that may not be the case. And so something that might just seem small to you, a small win, a small success in networking, could really be valuable to someone else here who might not do the same thing. So I'd like to first call on Deborah McGregor from Regis College, and then Amy, you'll be next. Unless, Deborah, were you just sharing your LinkedIn?
Yes, but thank you very much. I'm having a wonderful time.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. Amy, were you also sharing your LinkedIn, or did you have anything that you wanted to share about networking?
Just my LinkedIn, and I hit send too soon, so I got to get back to it.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think everyone's sharing their LinkedIn in the chat currently. I don't see any hands up yet about wanting to share strategies. But of course, again, if nobody wants to share vocally, you can also add it. Oh, look, we have Margaret Peggs. Hi, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you. And Pegs, please. That's great. So thanks so much. I think this is awesome. And I'm finally glad that we're having the conversation and putting a group together of professionals to be able to collaborate. And I wanted to share out that in New Hampshire, where I am currently at Dartmouth Health, we have started a group with the schools and the healthcare organizations to bridge the attestation that we do with everyone for the requirements, the background check, the immunizations, those kinds of things. So we decided to start with that, and hopefully we can get the entire state on board with schools and hospitals to agree to all of the same compliance things that we need to bring in students, and not make them repeat it every year and spend tons of money on background checks and getting their immunizations updated, amongst other things. And it's been awesome to do that. And I hope that we can continue to do that in the broader spectrum of what we're talking about in this group with the exact and on, you know, getting all the parties to talk to each other in one central place where everybody can view the information. So this is key, totally key. And I'm so grateful for this meeting.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing the love. I don't know if you can see it, Pegs, but you are getting a lot of love in the chat from folks who are working with you. So you are doing something right, probably a lot of things right. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else who wanted to share?
Can I ask a question, Kristy?
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Our school is a lot different from other schools where our NP students have to find their own preceptors.
Okay.
Would they be allowed to be in this exact thing, or is it just for the sites and the schools to be a part of?
That is
Like,
a great
yeah, could students
question.
go in there and find open placements themselves?
Mm-hmm. So Kunal, are you still on? He might have had to jump off for another
Yeah,
meeting.
I should have asked it while he was here. Yeah.
No, that's quite all right. I will give my best attempt at an answer and share that typically the students are not the ones paying for the platform. Typically, it's either the academic partner, so the school, or the hospital partner, the excuse me, the practice partner who is paying for Exat. And then the students are able to come in as free users, essentially being the end users of the platform. So in a structure that it sounds like you're working with, Carol, it would be reliant on the school to actually purchase the license for the software, to stand it up in terms of getting the format in place of however you would like that software to be used. Again, it's very customizable. And then the students would be able to come in to, you know, see what rotations are available, to see what partners your students may have worked with in the past, just to get some ideas, to maybe connect with alumni who've used certain partners who may want to share, so the students could then use that information to go and find their own. And so I've not seen it set up where the students can just get individual access to the software to look around to see who might be available. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, thank you very much.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for your question.
Sure.
Anyone else with any ideas or questions about networking?
Oh, any other collaboratives that are out there that haven't been mentioned yet?
Yes, Mary, please.
Hi, everyone. This has been a really informative session. I'm so excited to be part of this group. So I don't know if this is actually unique, but what we do at Quinnipiac is we try to maintain really close relationships with our hospital partners, and we make site visits, we bring them goodie bags, we invite them to come to on-campus events. So you just really, it's so important to put a face, with someone that you may strictly just be dealing with on email. So we just try really hard to be good partners and make sure that they know how much we appreciate them giving us placements.
Absolutely. Without them, no one could do their jobs, right?
Right. And we have the biggest program in the state of Connecticut. So we are in really big competition with many other schools who are trying to, we're like fighting for the same placement. So, we're always looking for different and unique opportunities for our students, especially for like community placements and yeah, things like that. So we just try to be really good partners.
Great. Yeah. And Lexi has said that they do that at Merrimack as well. So the site visits are really significant. I think the preceptor benefits is a huge conversation that a lot of schools are having. You not only want to maintain the good relationships, but you want to find some way to incentivize those preceptors because they are doing it altruistically. They are doing it out of the kindness of their heart. When they were nurses and they were going through school, they had their own preceptors, mentors, clinical site representatives who were helping with their education. And so they want to give it back to the next generation. But sometimes that is not enough to push through the burnout and the stress and the additional time that it takes to work with a student and really make sure that you help that student. You're not just dialing it in, you're really taking the time to show them all the different intricate things that they need to know to be successful. And so the preceptor benefits is huge. I will share that one thing that myself and some of my colleagues at University of Maryland did, which we found to be incredibly successful, was to create preceptor advisory boards. And so for 18-month terms, we would invite, different groups of preceptors in. We would have some set questions on what we would ask, what are your biggest challenges, not just as a preceptor, but as a nurse practitioner, what are the things that we can maybe help teach these students to overcome some of those challenges before they even come in? What are some things that we can do as an academic partner to help from our side to either, provide CEUs to help with your reaccreditation? And so having those advisory boards really let our partners know that, they were an important piece of this puzzle and we wanted to give back to them as much as they give to us to help our students. So, oh my gosh, as I was talking, I missed so much in the chat. Oh, so Lexi is saying that they use the county jail. That's always a great site for students that I think is overlooked because there's sometimes some fear about, the sheer patient population. I see, Deborah, you have your hand.
Yes. The Massachusetts Nursing Council has several subcommittees, and one is clinical placements. And I belong to that, and they meet monthly, and they've been working for at least a year or so on getting all of the clinical partners in the state to come up with a way so that we only have to have one set of papers, one set of onboarding, one set of this, and it's been quite the project, but we've been working on it and making some progress. So that's exciting.
Thank you so much for sharing, Deborah. There was also a question in the chat. Has it been hard to align between health organizations on compliance? I find our organization handles onboarding very differently than others in our region, and what that process looks like for schools and health systems who may be on all different types of platforms. I don't know if anyone in the society can take that, or anyone in the Laura?
Yeah, I can share a little bit about that with the work we've been doing in the Maryland Collaborative. So the group that was managing the compliance document spent, I can't even imagine how many hours, like looking over each hospital or health system's educational agreement to identify what is required. They found a lot of commonalities, but then several, obviously, TB, even COVID vaccines, and I know I have other colleagues here that could speak to it. But I say all that because they basically they narrowed it down. They didn't demand that they didn't request that each hospital or health system change everything to align with it, but they just knew that most are going to agree upon this. And they set it to I think it's like 11 or 12 items, flu vaccine, et cetera. And we are still in the not even implementation, we are still reviewing it. So how we handled it though was we took this proposal or this universal health recommendations, and I took it to legal at Johns Hopkins Health System, University of Maryland Health System also did it. So we kind of tried to start big in terms of if we could kind of use the numbers to provide a little bit of sway. So it is not currently in practice, it is still kind of being vetted around. And so obviously that will take some time. But what we've learned is that we do just want to keep the conversation going. We just don't want it to kind of like fall out. So if that answers the question, like it is a lot of work. And it's kind of about learning about who the stakeholders are in each organization, and making sure they all have buy-in. What we've learned is that a lot of people don't know that our role exists, which I say with a laugh, but it's not that funny. So I had example like our senior director of occupational health, which is all of our employee health, was like, "Oh, I didn't know you helped with the students." And she was so glad because she had no idea who was supporting the student process. So that's what I say. This is a long answer, story of my life, but I just want to encourage, like, it is definitely not an easy switch. And it has been taking a lot of time and kind of like just continued pressure on it. So I think that's the squeaky wheel will get it in that regard. I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks.
Thanks, Carly. I just want to say that, there are multiple people involved, right, in multiple realms. And so, it's education all the way around, students, the coordinators at the schools, and then working with our internal folks. So we've put together a in-person faculty orientation for nursing faculty instructors. And we do WebEx sessions for the practicum instructors, which has been great. And we're able to then provide them stuff or tools and the things that they need to be successful when they're on campus working with their students. We've built out a resource guide and handbook for them. And the same thing with APPs. I do the APP placements at Dartmouth as well as nursing students. And we have in the fall and in the spring a preceptor workshop, and it's an interactive meeting like this kind of is now, with some PowerPoints and then with some scenarios and questions that we run by preceptors on what happens if a student is doing this and how do you handle this situation and what do you do when you teach. And we've also built a resource guide and handbook for our preceptors in the APP realm as well. So we're trying to find ways to get everyone together and to build out a resource that's a working manual that's electronic for them to not have to print out all these pages, but then engage them in these sessions so they actually can be participants. So we're continuing to improve and constantly upgrade what we're doing, but I'm really happy for the mentor sessions that we do with the nursing realm and then with our providers and our preceptors at our workshops.
Thank you so much, Pegs, for sharing. I also see lots of wonderful links being sent from Judith, recommendations and resources. So if you guys are scrolling through the chat, definitely take a look at those. Sounds like Pegs needs to be a speaker at the summit next year, Dr. McCamey said. So if that interests you, Pegs, you are recruited. I did have someone ask a question. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go through the chat and catch up as much as possible. I don't know if we addressed this one, but Lauren is wondering, she would love to know how other clinical coordinators support their online preceptors to make them feel valued. Does anyone have a recommendation for Lauren? Karen.
Well, one of the things we do is a preceptor experience survey once a year, where we find out what it is they would like, and what it is that maybe are absolute no's. They don't. I work with the graduate program, so it's, one-on-one based, not group based. But interesting to find out that, well, they really need to have students that are enthusiastic about learning, or the student needs to have a good health assessment background. So we try to encourage that. We also may have preceptors that are working with a large Portuguese population, and they want somebody that is bilingual and can speak Portuguese. So we utilize that information when we're doing individual matches. We also get a lot of preceptors that are coming back to us and we'll post them on their opportunities on an intranet in the school so that the graduate students see those opportunities and can send their resumes in. And we let the preceptor choose who it is they want to work with. So between reaching out to them, sending them thank yous, sending them holiday cards, and answering them back, I think that the follow through is really the biggest thing that they want. If they ask a question, they want a response quickly. So I guess those are my big things.
Thank you, Karen, for sharing. And thank you, everybody, so much for the wonderful conversation. We do have more stuff that we need to cover in the summit, so we are going to wrap up this session, but this has been a wonderful discussion and really shows how this community can be so helpful all around for all of us. So I'm so excited you're all here. I'm going to turn it over to Tamiya. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to see everything at play, all of the networking, and like you mentioned, everyone sharing their experiences. It's so amazing seeing the society come together and all of the people all over the nation. So I know the conversation did progress a little naturally, and we got to share a little bit more about our innovations and how we're coming together and making new processes for our teams in an academic and hospital perspective. But would anybody like to share any workflow innovations that they use within in-house to oversee and help those things come together for the teams?
And again, just, feel free to share things that work for you. It doesn't have to be a name brand, but if you have a process that works really well for your workflow or a technology that you use, for example, smart sheets or something, any ideas that you can generate and share with the group, really could be transformative for somebody else.
Kelsey, did you want to unmute and share?
Hi, I was just offering some of the benefits that we offer our preceptors. We do a certificate acknowledging their time as a preceptor. There's a tuition benefit that we offer to preceptors, as well as they can get free continuing education hours through us as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, when we think about innovations, it's not just fancy technology or any high-tech tools or even big budget solutions. So like Abby mentioned, any process improvements or implementations that you all implemented would be great.
Mm-hmm. Just to add on to Kelsey, while others are thinking about what they want to share, because believe me, we know that you all have something to share. At Maryland, we would do the same thing with certificates, but we would pull the data. And so our certificates would show how many semesters, how many hours, how many years, and sometimes how many students they would work with. And the preceptors loved that. We would put it in one of the cute little certificate holders. And for us, it was just a piece of paper that we printed up. But for them, they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that over the last 4 years, it was this many students. And so doing tiny little things like that to really thank the individual preceptor and not just say, oh, thanks for taking a student. I think that they really appreciated that individual note.
Kristy, I see Peg's mentioned that she uses monday.com for tracking and sending out links to students. Awesome. I see Lauren mentioned Sonia, a clinical tracking system. Would you like to share more about how you customize that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an Australian-based program, and we were able to really build it from the ground up. And we have a lot of flexibility in it, and we can do that. we use the system very much internally and then connect with the Sonia support team as needed, but we don't have to do a lot within the rigidity of the system. It was very technical, so there was a lot of things we had to learn. Fortunately, I have a great team that's much more technically savvy than me, and they've helped us to make it much more automated. We can send out a lot of automated workflows through that system, and we've built it to work with our various programs from RN to BSN to FNP track.
Nice. Thanks so much for sharing. And I see Dr. McCamey is also sharing some preceptor event festivities and recaps.
I love those. What a fun event.
Yeah, Danielle, I mean, I think that's pretty innovative. So would you mind jumping on and sharing a little bit? I know that some people think about these ideas, but never see them to fruition, or it seems too intimidating, but would love to hear your innovative approach to celebrating preceptors.
Yeah, so we were on a quest of just like branding Hopkins preceptor. So really curating like some sort of pride around being a preceptor for Hopkins. And so I like to dance and have music. So we revamped the preceptor appreciation event so that it was more like a celebration. So we would have themes to our preceptor events. I can't remember what this 2023 one was, but then we had one that was like, if Winter is here, she is the coordinator of the events for our preceptor celebrations. But we had one that was in honor of Beyonce. So we had cowboy hats and cowboy boots. And but it was just really, really fun. It just broke up the monotony of having something that was with continuing education, and people really love getting out on the dance floor to do some line dances and sip on some champagne and just have like non-clinical, non-academic connection. And so as you can see, people had a little bit of fun and having a photo booth and really, really nice food and really, really nice quality swag, not just the typical, okay, we're going to give you another mug, we're going to give you another bag. And I think Tamiya can also chime in on some of the preceptor events that she was also a part of as well.
Absolutely. And we have one coming up in just a few weeks. But like you mentioned, it was just to break the monotony of the professionalism that comes with the task and really celebrate our preceptors and the work that we did. And I think that one of the concepts that we were able to implement was the actual physical awards that we were able to give. They were really nice awards that we were able to get customized. That way our preceptors had something that really honored the preceptor of the year. And every department was able to nominate a preceptor to honor every year as well. So I think that went a long way.
And I just want to say hi. I'm here. I couldn't get off mute fast enough, but my team always comes through. It's Winter. And yes, we've gotten some really great feedback from our previous preceptor events. And I know if nothing else, because it is always such a big task and a big ask for us to secure the preceptors. They just enjoy the thought. One thing that we did incorporate last year and the year before, last year it was more received. We did online with our preceptors who couldn't make it into town for whatever reason. And I think they appreciated that. We offered the idea of doing raffles so that we mailed a couple of, gifts, just making sure that people could be included that wasn't able to attend in person. Is something for everybody to consider.
Hi, Winter.
Hey, Kristy.
Oh, it's so good to see you. Yeah, I will say one fear that I always had in doing live events with preceptors is, will they come? Their schedules are insane. They've got so much like the rest of us, but let me tell you, if you plan some fun and you have music and dancing, they will come. All right, I'm gonna call Sean out because I know that she has some really good information to share. She was talking about how they use Exact for the students to rank, and that's what they use to assign. Sean, are you willing to share a little bit more about that?
Really, Kristy?
I asked in the chat.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
That's okay. If not, we can maybe ask Jamie or Teresa.
Okay, fine. Um, yes, so for group to make clinical assignments fair, so I go in and I set up what we offer for the clinical placements, and the students have to go in. So for, say, med surg, if I offer 15 slots, the students have to go in and they have to rank all 15 slots from their choices based on what they prefer, 1 through 15. They want Hopkins first, University of Maryland second, and down. They have to rank them. And then what I have Exact do is run an algorithm based upon the number of students versus the number of placements, and then Exact assigns the placements and sends me a list of who got placed where. And this is how we make a fair assignments for students. And this is how we do it for all our group clinicals.
Thank you, Shawnee.
No problem.
Well, that sounds like it saved a lot of time with the exact system matching the placements. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
it does.
sharing. And now Dr. McCamey also asked how people are doing outreach. We're kind of pivoting the conversation, but I'd love to hear more about how you're working with preceptors and sites to secure those slots for the students. If anyone would like to share.
Maya, I can jump in from the Maine Health perspective. Granted, I've only been in the role since fall 2024, but one thing that I really try to do is anytime I have a chance to engage with someone, they might not be on our list as being an active preceptor, or maybe they're new to Maine Health, or maybe they haven't had enough time in their profession. But just planting the seed, that's the best if that's the best I can do, is just plant the seed, connect them to our office, let them know that we're here. Sometimes that's all it takes. And sometimes they might tell me no. And then a month later, you know what, I actually am ready to take a student. Or I can't take one, but I could share one with one of my colleagues. And so it's like, yes, like that's the type of innovative approach that we're trying to take is, not all placements are going to look the standard way that we would expect, where we would pair one student with one preceptor. So I think like any chance I can connect, get my actual face in front of them instead of just an email, because we know we get inundated with emails all the time, but we do that. And we started an Instagram page. So we have Precept Me for Precept Maine. And we try to feature preceptors on there that maybe have had a student to share like a little spotlight on them. But we've seen good results with people liking that, and then potentially engaging themselves as they take a student. So, I don't think it's like a one size fits all approach, and I'm hoping that other people have suggestions to share, because I think that this is one like easy, potentially no cost solution that we could share with each other. Like, what works for you? How have you gotten those preceptors, not only initially, but how have you retained them over time?
That's awesome. I really like the idea of using social media. I know Dr. McCamey mentioned how we have a Hopkins Facebook, but I love that you're getting good engagement on the Instagram page as well.
I know a strategy we used was revamping the way the emails look like versus sending these like paragraphs, that we would leverage Canva to have like images of like the highlight of the information that we want people to know. And then also having QR codes that folks can scan to learn more about the programs. And then also we had our coordinators initiate welcome calls, so that at the beginning of the semester, we would use Calendly, which is a platform that you can connect to your Outlook. And we would say every Tuesdays and Thursday, we're going to just do welcome calls where we would initiate outreach within our students just to answer any in the moment clinical placement questions. And then we would go over what the what the expectations of the process would look like, from like rules of engagement, how to communicate with your clinical coordinator, when to escalate, when not to escalate. Don't CC the dean, the provost, and the president on just because you didn't hear from your preceptor in 72 hours. Like, give us a chance to fix, the issue. So we would do more proactive communication with the students to help answer any questions. But everyone had like structured, well, not structured, but like set days that it was like straight up communication with students. And then we also were looking at strategies to look at where a cluster of our students were. Where we had the highest cluster of students, and start creating what we call alumni hubs. So collaborating with our alumni association to see if we can try to get a preceptor or an alumni person that can kind of serve as like a satellite person to say, hey, I saw this clinic on the internet. Can you just go there to make sure it's in, a safe area and that it's actually open? And can you go in to see if you can invite someone to the Hopkins preceptor family? I know with our distance clinicals, there's the Board of Nursing red tape. So we would recruit clinical faculty for a semester, one of our alum preceptors to kind of be like our boots on the ground that we would communicate with.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. And Kathy, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, I'm Kathy Alger. Some things that we do with our alumni is we do send out emails to, broad across to see if people are interested in coming back as being preceptors. We do get quite a few responses, so we try to get that out once a year and then reach back out to those people. We also have some touch point times that when preceptors are looking for validations of hours, sending those out, those are good opportunities to, send out we have a preceptor program overview and something that explains our benefits. And, just making sure that we're getting that out there, asking them, if they'd like to continue to precept, because our students do find their own preceptors. A lot of them may not be repeat preceptors. So this is our way of, bringing them back for more. Also, because of our benefits, we have vouchers that we do provide to our preceptors, and sending out those. I'm always encouraging those past preceptors to come back to earn additional hours for vouchers, so that we can reuse those preceptors.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I found that remarketing to past preceptors has been very successful for our programs as well, and also leveraging other programs like the Maryland Tax Preceptor Benefit. We use that to try to get preceptors in the state, and I found that that's been very helpful as well. But thank you also for sharing.
Maya, that's an excellent point. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the tax benefit? Because other states might not have that available.
I was just
Sure,
going to ask about that. That sounds innovative.
Yeah, Maryland is a state that offers a tax credit if you precept for a specific number of hours. You do have to apply for the program by, I believe, December is the deadline. But it does allow preceptors who posted students for, I believe, 100 hours. Don't quote me on that, but it's at least 100 hours. For preceptor, you get a tax credit, and a lot of our preceptors have applied for it and gotten it. So that's a pretty nice benefit to have. I'm not sure what other states offer it, but it's worth looking into for clinical educators and preceptors. I can definitely share that link.
Teresa, would you like to share some information about your wins with that tax benefit?
Sure. So for my DNP project, I worked with my legislator to change the eligibility criteria related to the preceptor tax credit. Specifically, when they expanded that program to include RNs, only one RN has accessed that benefit since 2022. Legislation was just passed in both chambers to make the eligibility criteria 90 hours. And that is going to the governor's desk. So I'm waiting for him to sign that.
Congratulations. I know that that was a lot of work, and I just put the link in the chat regarding the Maryland preceptor tax credit. All right, does anyone else have anything else they wanted to share? Any questions that they'd like to pose for the group? I think we have time for maybe one more topic. Or if during this time anyone would like to share any resource or tool or topic that they would really like us as a national society to help you with, please feel free to raise your hand or put your name in the chat to share it with the group.
I see Christina added that they use a centralized clinical placement website and Compio for preclinical requirements. Nice.
All right.
We talked about what worked well. Would anybody like to share anything that's not working so well that we could be of service with?
Laura, just out of curiosity, what was the difference once you changed background providers? Was it the process? Was it paperwork?
Service, the customer service had been so poor with our previous vendor, and we'd felt very locked in. And it's hard to make those changes. You have to go through all the university review, the red tape of the contracts and stuff, but ultimately it was so worth it. And I have to admit, it was my team that really prompted me to do it, because they were dealing with a lot of the headaches of the students just struggling to get their documents to upload. So that's been easier. It's just a quicker turnaround. So the accuracy is improved. So if you're thinking about doing it and it seems daunting, it still probably will be worth it. There are a lot of options out there. And as a program that goes nationally, we have tested other systems because sites require it, and we're still finding the one we self-selected to move to has worked out really well. So definitely think about making a change if you are experiencing there's pain points, but I have been really impressed with our customer service and turnaround for our students.
Right. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Tamiya, for leading that. Thank you, everyone here, just for sharing your thoughts, and frankly, sharing your appreciation for us coming together, and everything that collectively, and I'm not just talking about our founders here, I'm talking about everyone who shared what you do, how you do it, how it's either been successful or potentially a challenge, because this is how we grow and this is how we learn. I would like to again thank our speakers, Lori Harris, Laura Smith, and Kunal Vaishnav from Exact, for coming on just to share a little bit about what you do, and how that might be able to impact everyone else here. This has been an amazing experience for us, just to, get the society off the ground, and, really be able to, share some of what we've done to help all of you, but just to, again, see that there is a collective need across the nation for a forum like this, and we're here for it. We're here to bring everyone together. You want to go ahead and go to the next slide, please? So again, thanks to Exact. Couldn't do what we do without you. We will be sending out a feedback survey within the next couple days, ideally, maybe week, because again, we want to tailor it and make sure that it's relevant to everything that was discussed here. But please, 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 particularly for those who didn't want to speak up today, share what we can do for you. You know, Tamiya said it, you know, better than anyone else could, a community for us, by us. And so we really want to use the data that we can collect from you to determine what resources moving forward we're going to put our time into. You know, we also want to hear, are there things like, you know, I think I mentioned earlier, a quarterly newsletter just to get news out? Would more sessions like this be helpful for you? You know, in establishing some committee work, are there particular committees that would be most helpful for you? And yes, as Danielle said, please, please, please share information regarding the society far and wide. We sent this initially to our networks just to get everything off the ground, but our intent with this is to make this a society that's open to anyone in the US. And you know, Lord knows if we do well, we'll open it up to other countries. Don't quote me on that, but you know, we really want to grow this as much as possible to ensure that anyone in this role does not feel isolated and feels as though they have a place to go. And so we want that information on the survey. Please keep a lookout. Now, the exciting thing to share. As we get everything off the ground and recognizing that we are in some very beginning stages here, we are going to make membership for the society free for the first year. So please, if you go to our website, which is listed at the bottom of the slide here, you can go ahead and join the society, give us your contact information so we can share out updates. We can include you in any future events. Again, if we're, you know, going to get some committee work off the ground, reach out to you to recruit for what area you might be most interested in. You know, and again, please share this far and wide. We want folks in placement roles to join the society so we can pull from everyone's expertise to make our jobs better. So save the date. Our next event, our next summit is going to be on April 16th, 2026. We'd like to see everyone there. We would like to see more than everyone there. So please save the date. Obviously, details will come. You know, I think that particularly in higher education, and I'm sure on the practice side too, we all live our lives at least 9 months in advance. And so, you know, what's another 3 months to plan for the same event in 12 months? So please, please, please save the date. You know, I think as we kind of bring this to an end, you know, we've had a wonderful opportunity to see that there are a lot of other like-minded folks out there dealing with the same challenges, having the same successes, and just doing it in very different ways. We've heard a lot about, you know, different ways that states or regions can collaborate to bring shared successes to, you know, to the students and the partners that they work with. We've heard about some technology platforms that have brought success for everyone. You know, we've heard about some preceptor benefits that people are incorporating, you know, and other things that we're doing to recognize the preceptors and, you know, all the great folks, the community that comes together to help our students. You know, and I think that we've heard some really innovative ideas. So please keep that going, and we will give you a forum to share all of that with everyone else. We are at 3 o'clock, so in the name of being respectful for everyone's time, again, thank you for coming. Please go to our website, join our society, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you.